Yeah. All right, welcome back to the Genius Recap for RHAP. It's Zach, it's Cory, and we've got a big guest with us today. Our first ever exit interview, the recently released from prison, Paul. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm still on the run, Cory. Serial killer on the run.
We've caught you for a short bit, it seems. But how are you, Paul? I mean, I feel like it's probably been a little bit of a whirlwind. Do you feel like just how's the fresh air treating you?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, we filmed this 14 months ago, and I retired like 8 years ago. I was, I'm nearly 60 this year. I was 58 when we record the show, and so I've been retired for 8 years, and I was. It's funny. I used to have this friend, James Mount. I mean, he is a genius, and I used to walk into his office, and instead of saying, when something good happened, that's great, or it's so exciting, whatever, he just used to say genius. And I came across I was just Googling one December dark, wet day, bored, and I came across the show, and I just thought, hey, that looks really good fun to me. I think there'll be some amazing players on here, but hey, who knows? And the rest is history. Somehow I got on the show.
That's incredible. Well, Paul, I don't know if you know our history, but I actually was on Survivor. Cory was on Big Brother. And believe it or not, I was actually the first boot of Survivor.
Oh, right. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you're in good company. I know what it's like. I know how it feels, and definitely want to hear. So let's just start at the beginning here, right?
Yeah.
You enter the house. It's day one. Well, it's not even day one. Let's just start the beginning of round one.
Yeah.
What do you change? How do you play it differently to essentially prevent yourself from getting iced out?
Yeah. Look, there's an important bit of information. It just took me a little while because the way that the program is edited, we get into, I think it was about 9 minutes 40, right? Mm-hmm. What actually happened was there was 5 minutes, and Ben's done a little recap in episode 1. It just confirmed that. I thought I was going mad for a moment. It was 5 minutes. We were all in the room together.
Okay.
So what you don't see it cut off just before is, when you go for these auditions and interviews, etc., you think, how do I make myself stand out in the crowd of thousands, maybe 10,000 applicants to get on the show? And so I suspected there were going to be, a lot of younger, perhaps lesser characters than perhaps myself. Mm-hmm. And then obviously with my background. So all I said to the producers was, what I'll do is I'll make you a promise. And I've never broken a promise in my life. If the game's not going right, I'll try to get it on track, because what you want in the show is a fantastic show, right? And I'll try and do that, even if it means I'm going to take additional risks and put myself in trouble, right? And the second thing I'll do is I'll try and entertain. And so what happened is we were in that room for 5 minutes, and I mean, it is just like, it's just boring. Nothing's happening. So what you see is then us. What you see is, but it doesn't quite appear that way, is us going out. What actually happened was I said, okay, or somebody had said it earlier on, but I actually said, we need to split up, guys. Let's half of us go to the other room. And then there was 4 of us. And I know that was the moment, because you see me saying, come on, I knew we need at least a even team. So we need at least one more of you to come with us. Mm-hmm. What I should have done was said, hang on, anybody else, because then we'd have had the dominant 6-5. And so we went off to the room. Then what you see is that was just me, is Beck saying to me, because I'd done that, she thought I had a solution. I didn't. I hadn't even worked out what was going on. I'm in my mind, I'm going, hang on, do we I've got the tip box, so do we attack? Actually, how do we win the game, and what are they going to do? That was sort of the 3 dimensions for me, but I didn't know of any semblance of any plan. I mean, clearly, and I made that daft error at the start of the, thinking it was 10 and 20 when it was 15 and 20. I had 10 million on my mind for some reason. It's just, start of the game. It was kind of irrelevant, Because then what actually happened was, after that, there was some discussion. Ben didn't have the solution at that stage because he hasn't seen this game, and goes off to the other room, right? And all the time he's standing up, and it's that, at that point when we come back, I say like, no, right, don't go, because the clock's ticking. So you see from 9 minutes, and then we're suddenly at 2 when Ben proposes the solution.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I realized. Then now I'm thinking, hang on, is that the best solution? It's a good one. Clearly, it worked for the other team, but I'm thinking, hang on, if we go for the other alternatives, if we go for more players, get somebody in jail, then you just take the one out. But the problem was, he's blamed on me, and by now his head's gone, right? I mean, I'm an alpha male, and he gets on better with women. It's just, we're just different characters. I'm not saying anything personal, just we're just different in that sense. And he's a lovely guy, except when he's playing games. And he's just now Ben's way or the highway, and that's the way it looks. But that's what it had been all the way through. And I mean, I take responsibility. Should have just didn't have my head properly in the game at that stage. And so we were left for 2 minutes, but we were getting there. We were just down. If we'd had those 2 minutes, Bex is watching the clock, and we had those 2 minutes, we'd have either gone tipped off 5, tipped off 3 players could have been, or just gone with Ben's. Any of those would have put me in a potentially better position. And if we'd done that, I mean, I was 50-50 when I went in terms of abstaining. But I thought, because such chaos now, Ben's head's gone on me. I know we're done. What's going to happen in round 2? So I'll take that 50-50 risk now. If we'd had a plan to get one of them in jail, I think I'd have abstained, because it was the smartest thing to do. I mean, I think 4 players abstained. I was amazed 7 took the risk in that first round. Obviously, I didn't know that at the time. So,
So let me ask, why did you think they chose you out of everyone? Because the show presents it as, oh, he just said, oh, well, nothing personal. Seemed like a kind of silly reason to single someone out. Do you think that was really the reason, or was there something else?
Well, I deliberately set myself. It was deliberate. I wore the suit. It was deliberate to create an image of, somewhat fear, right? On the premise that I don't think I'm going to need some luck. Everybody needs some luck to get through these games. But just actually, I'm just purely there to have fun. Right? I am going to create some chaos, but I'm also going to be actually pretty well honest and try and create some allies and some trust and play as many of the games as I want. I just don't want to go in the first round or the second round. If I get through 2 or 3, it's great. So actually, don't be chosen for the death match. Of course, what I underestimated was that I would be
the target.
That game came up and that I was the target.
Yeah,
it's funny. Actually,
you go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I had a question about Ben, because you talk quite a bit about him, and he plays a very important role in a lot of these games. So you and Ben seem to have some beef at the start, despite being on the same side of things. And then you get to the stage where you're picking someone for the deathmatch. You don't pick Ben. Just what's it like playing games with him, and what ultimately led to not picking him for the deathmatch? Because it felt like that's where things were headed.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in the deathmatch that was cut out in terms of how I got to the choice. You want to talk about that now, or you want to talk about it later?
No, let's talk about it now.
Why
Let's talk
Basha?
now.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was in jail in round 4, Basha passed me the note. All right.
Yeah.
And of course, by this time is everybody's trying to save themselves. I mean, I'd worked all out. By the way, once I'd got in round 1, I was able to play the chess match in my head, worked it out. I'm doomed. I know I'm doomed. That's why I tipped it. If you work every which way, I had a small hope if somebody else had won. and I just tipped Scott off because I knew he was the
ringleader,
perpetrator of he was the leader, and he was my downfall. So I just did it really for a bit of fun, knowing that I'm probably doomed because I had to get 4 points. So I had to go for something in round 3. But I did have a little bit of hope, as if Charlotte hadn't won. If Amanfi had won, I mean, I didn't do any of this, of course. If Amanfi had won, Scott could have been in trouble, actually, because he only had 1. So there was still some hope, I suppose. So actually, I should have abstained in round 3 and gone for that, and maybe Amanfi. But you know what? I just knew. I just knew to work it out. All hindsight. I just knew by the time I'm in jail, because they're all in the same room. I mean, obviously, I'm watching them. They're all got together, and I'm tipped off in every round. I wouldn't have scored in round 4 either. They all tipped me off to save themselves. So I was done.
So with Basha, back to Basha. Basha gives you the note.
So she gives me the note, and I'm just like, they're all just trying to save themselves. Right. But actually, she passed me a second note. I don't know why they cut that out. Maybe they couldn't get the camera on it, because I don't know who wrote the first note, but it was a different person who wrote the second note, because it's different handwriting, and one was on lined paper, and one was on a unlined piece. And the second note said, "Someone in your team has betrayed you." All right. So now I'm like, hang on a minute. Were they that organized, or did Ben go in there and actually they weren't as well organized in round 1 and get them organized? It could only be Ben. So what I actually did is, Ben confirms this in his. I think it was probably about 10 or 15 minutes. Obviously, you can't show that on TV. But after a little bit of discussion where I was listening to what everybody was saying, I said, okay, can all of my team go to the left? And obviously Scott and Charlotte, who I can't choose, and I let Ken go as well, deliberately, because I knew Ken was going to be. I sensed Ken was going to be a strong player. You saw that when he said he was a comedian. I said comedians are usually really intelligent. They didn't show it. I went off into a room and I said, I think Ken's some kind of like Oxford, Cambridge, MIT maths wizard who plays poker. I was convinced he plays poker at that stage, and actually, it was pretty accurate. I don't know why they didn't show that.
No, along with a million other games.
Yeah,
on YouTube live.
Yeah.
So you put them into the separate group, and
so put them in a separate group, and so now I've got Basha, Amanfi, and an Indy, and I'm waiting for. Ben's trying to say himself, but he did give me a tip, make sure you know how many garments they've got. I thought about that anyway. But what I didn't want to do is I could have bullied them a bit. I could have taken them all, or certainly 4 of them. But then I'm torn between, if I do that and the wrong death game comes up and I need help, I'm doomed. Sure. So let's see if they'll just give them up. But I also want to find out whether Ben was involved. So I'm saying to them, guys, you tell me who fairly is most responsible to go to the death match. All right. I'm offering. If Basha had said, she could have just said it was Ben. All right.
She would have taken Ben.
I think. Well, I don't know what I'd have pulled him over for sure, just to make him sweat, which he would have hated. Because I know we're done, but I'd have pulled him over. But actually, I don't think I'd have chosen. I knew he was a strong player. That would have been a silly thing to do. If I'd known it was Indy, because I didn't want to choose Basha. I like Basha. I thought she was like a nice character, even though she came into the room and absolutely destroyed our chance in those last 2 minutes before we went into round 1. Yeah. I didn't really want to choose her, but I looked at Indy. She did a good job, and I thought she was going to cry. I just didn't want to make her cry. She just looked at me like she's about to burst into tears, and I just thought, "No, come on, I'm here to."
It's a good way
of playing. A specific question, kind of about the Basha and the letter thing, because this idea popped in my head. I'm curious if it popped in yours. When you receive Basha's letter, basically tossing India under the bus, pick India. Did you ever think of just publicizing that letter of being, hey, your team is turning on each other? Or was that never?
Hey, India, look what I just got.
No, to be honest, it didn't pass through our mind. But if I'd done that, I'm just creating more enemies. Basher's like totally against me as well. I mean, I've already got 3.
But you're an alpha male, Paul.
I would have thought of it.
You know, I don't care if I get knocked out. Really, I was gutted, but it's not. You know, I'm not desperate to win. I'm there to have fun. But
I would have just thought of it from the perspective of like, you put me in jail. I have no loyalty to you. So, you know, let's just let everyone know what's happening. Let's just be honest, I guess.
Yeah. But what I did, I think they could have, what I did do, and I did several times, you know, when Amanfi asked me, it said I should choose Alison. I mean, it's like, why? And I said to, you know, I read them and they cut it out. I said, like, why? Because it wasn't clear. If she just said, Indy was the person who suggested you were the person that we should target, I'd have chosen Indy for sure. Basher could have saved herself. I'd have chosen Indy. Doesn't matter, Basher won the death match, but for sure I would have chosen Indy then. I was never choosing the Manfi, even though I know he's trying to save himself, but he did sort of try to help me by saying abstain, but I knew that was him just trying to save himself as well. But he hadn't done anything. He hadn't done anything for me to choose him. Just the same as, although he did offer up Alison, there was definitely no way I was choosing Alison. What for what reason? So
yeah, no, it's very fair. If you had moved forward, who do you think you would have worked with going forward?
Yeah, well, when we were in the auditorium, you know, getting to know each other. And by the way, I mean, the integrity is amazing. I thought on the Korean show, it seemed like they had a lot more time. I don't know whether it was filmed week to week or whatever, but they seemed to just have much more time to really get to know each other. We had 0. I mean, we're.
So was yours? Yeah, it was every day you would do a game.
Yeah,
was that how it's structured? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, we were up at like 5:30. You're in there in the dressing room, or you're on ice with the headphones on.
Yeah,
there's like nobody knows anything. The only discussion, the only insight you're having to anybody was during that sort of 30 minutes in the auditorium where we're all talking with each other. I felt comfortable with everybody. Apart from, I sensed Ken was really strong, which I've already said. I really wanted to get Scott aside. I mean, this is genuine. I'm so annoyed. That was my single most annoying thing. I wanted to get Scott aside. I sensed he was going to be a really strong player, but a threat to me. Just his sort of personality. And I wanted to get him aside and say, look, let's not just go head to head. I'm not going to win here, but I can be a really good ally for you, right? And, you know, I think you're going to need that because you can already see he'd have worked it out. You know, I think Ben's a strong player. I think Ken's a strong player. I also knew Charlotte was a strong player as well. It's kind of funny. Almost the same thing in our audition game happened. It was a Scotsman in Charlotte did the same thing. Yeah, it passed. Honestly, it passed.
Are you allowed to share what the audition game was? We know in the Korean Genius that they have them play like these like kind of pretend death matches. I think one of them, or main matches, I think one of them in the Korean one was the zombie game they had them play out.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything against that. Well, I mean, what they're gonna do? Yeah, I can share that. It was pizza, burger, chips. And you had like 4 grades, and it was something like if one of you chooses only one, you get 5 points.
That's in the Korean version. It's just not pizza, burger, chips. It's like 3 Korean foods.
Yeah,
they have that same game. That's good to know. Okay, love that game actually. Did you do well at that?
Well, no, that's part of the reason I got on, because I knew I didn't need to win, didn't need to lose. I just caused chaos.
Yeah,
I had one of the girls in the audition nearly leapt over the table at the end, wanting to lamp me one. she was because we didn't play the death match, and the producer said to me, you know, who would you choose? I was in the death match in that one, so who would you choose for the death match? And I said I'd choose whatever, and we had dummy names, and she said why, and I said I deliberately said it was I just think she's by far the weakest player. She didn't even know what she was doing before she came in. I saw her in reception. And then she just got up, and then everybody's laughed, right? It was just a joke, but she took it personally.
Wow.
So I just did that.
I love that they do that.
Just chaos.
That's incredible.
Paul, I want to ask you specifically about the death match, because you get there against Basha, and it feels like at the start Basha doesn't exactly understand the rules, perhaps, or there's a lot of misunderstanding. You get to a point where you have a big lead, and then you just kind of hold your stance, at least on the show. Is that what happened? What was the logic behind that?
Yeah. So again, they didn't show it. So I said, I don't think. Basha's a very smart girl. She's a doctor. She's everything else. But she made the statement. It was the really overriding reason I chose it. That I don't play games. I'm like, we're on a game show where there's going to be a lot of people.
It's a pretty.
I play poker, and it's a pretty big reveal.
Yeah.
So I thought she was telling the truth. I really did, and so that's why I chose it. So I thought she's going to get off to a slow start. And if she gets off to a slow start in the first couple of rounds, I can get a lead. I also know the biggest risk is the complete, right? Yeah. Because you get 3 points. So I can't, even if I can't know that there's, I've got to make sure there's at least one on the board. So, and then of course, the first round, I was like, terrible. It took us about 30, 40 seconds. Then she goes for one, gets it wrong. Then she goes complete. And then, did she get another one wrong? And then I scored 2, and then it's suddenly like I've got a 7-point lead. I'm like, I really don't need to go anywhere near a complete here. And I knew in the first round there was only one left, so I did stop playing there. Then you have to understand that game. We'd been up at 5:30. That game was played at 9:30. Right? So stay focused. If that was 9 o'clock in the morning or 40 years ago, there's no way I would have lost. I lost focus because I thought it was all over. It was complacency, terrible. It's terrible. And then of course round 2, I couldn't see any more, and I was paranoid about it going complete. But there was only 3. There was only 3, I think, in round. And I'm sat there thinking, God, there must be one more. And then she just goes for it. She didn't know. She goes for it and gets the 3. And now, suddenly, and round 3.
And in retrospect, too, the complete, you can kind of yell out complete again, as long as you don't yell it wrong 3 times, you're going to end up positive, because it's 3 whole points.
Yeah. So, and then by the end of round 4, so then obviously 4, I get myself head back in it. So at the end of round 4, I was a point down, and I knew there was one left. And so it's going backwards and forwards. And what I'm hoping is I want her to think there's none. Go for another complete, and then I'm level. Do I take it? Hope that she's now got over the sort of complete frenzy, and I might get a point and complete. Mm-hmm. And see, they left lots of funny things out, and it goes back to 4, and then I hit it, and I'm out of time, and I'm hitting it. I smashed the buzzer. I actually smashed the buzzer. We had to take it.
Literally broke the buzzer.
Literally broke the buzzer. I mean, they left it out. It was, if you'd left a load of these sort of bunnies in, I think that would have been quite engaging for people. And then
I agree. Then I think that was missing in the first episode. I think we would have really loved that.
Like in after the first round. So I'm from the north of England, right? And so as you went to near Newcastle in the north there's this like 100-meter iron statue called the Angel of the North. All right, everybody in England knows it, right? It's this iconic structure, and I go in there and go like, like I'm so annoyed with myself, and I said, now I'm going to have to betray one of my team. I've got the Angel of the North on one shoulder, and I've got the devil on the other, and I don't know which way to go here.
That's a great line.
They
couldn't let us love you too much, Paul, because they knew that they were going to take you from us.
I know.
They were also probably bitter about the button that you smashed.
Yeah,
the buzzer.
Like, this guy.
I don't think you have any friends in production now.
I know, but
Uh,
I think that gave her some more time to get ahead really in the game, which by this time she has, of course, right? She's probably even playing better than me, even-ish. And then, but even at the end of the fifth, I don't know whether you've analysed it. I've been through it. I mean, I think there were 25 tricks, and by the end of the fifth, I'm 3 points down. I get one wrong, which is a disaster. But I thought there was just one left. If I got the one, and actually Scott did say a heat spot. If I got the one, I could have completed. There was still even a chance at that stage.
Yeah,
so, it's hard to do that math at that time, like right in the heat of the moment.
Definitely, but I knew how to play that. You just go through the sequence, whichever one you want to take first. Take out all the backgrounds, take out all the shapes, take the colors. But in the heat of the moment, it's now 11 o'clock at night after, whatever, 16 hours. It's just tough to do. I mean, I'm nearly 60, so it's. I love taking these guys on 40 years ago.
Well, Paul, I only have a final question for you. It's just, will we get to see your cast photo? You said that it got lost in the mix. Why did you not have a cast photo? Why was it just that mugshot?
I did. I sent you. I'm sure it's. I don't know who it goes to. And Rob,
you must have sent it to Sam, I imagine.
No. I put it on the. I put it on the. I put a message. I emailed it, and I put a message on the YouTube.
I saw that, but my first thought was.
Well,
no, I saw the comment, but my first thought was like, how does Paul have my email? My email's not public. So you must have emailed it to someone. I don't know what email you sent to.
So I said I'm serial killer on the run. Right?
Well, you know what, Paul? You now have Sam's email. Send the photo to Sam so that we can see it. Next episode, we'll put it up for when we record the next one.
It's all to clear it up, Paul.
Let the world see.
You got to clear the photograph because you guys are going at it, right? So they had a hexagon photograph for everybody, which is like what you see on some of the TV trailers, us all together in the hexagon shot. And then they had the grey background photo. Somebody just cocked up in the press, when they first released it, put everybody's grey background and decided to put the hexagon on me, or they'd lost it for the moment. If you go back to the ITV press release, they've put the hexagon photograph on that but by that time everybody's downloaded it. So it was just a press release cock up, that's all. But I will send you the photograph in a moment.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Paul.
Say what, Paul. I can't help but say, like, you really think it was unintentional? After they put you in jail the entire game, you break their buzzer, an accidental press slip up. Like, I hear you.
This feels like a setup from the start. Yeah.
Well, we'll never know, will we? We'll never know.
Paul, this was this was so much fun. Thank you for joining us. I know Cory was devastated to see the first member of his team get eliminated.
Sorry, Cory.
I draft you again, Paul. I promise. I don't even knowing the results. It was a good pick.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you again for coming on, and wish you nothing but the best. I hope that this was a really fun experience because we definitely had a lot of fun watching you on it.
It was great. I'm glad. Yeah. Take care, guys.
Yep. See you, Paul. Hey y'all, Cory here. Just a quick update. Zach was not able to make it to this exit interview. So, fortunately for you all and for me, I get to have like this one-on-one intimate interview with Scott. So I guess I hope you guys enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Here I am with a very special guest. Not the winner, but the Token of Life recipient of episode 1. What's up, Scott? How are you?
Hi, Cory. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, I'm pumped to talk to you. I feel like you... I'm there for 2 episodes, but you were very active in those 2 episodes, very involved. So my first big picture question is just what got you to apply for this program, and were you a fan of The Genius before?
So in terms of application, so I've always liked the idea of sort of trying to go outside my comfort zone and go on TV, do something a bit different, and it's not something I've ever done before or anything similar. So I thought, it seems like something I'd quite like and quite enjoy doing. So previously I've applied for like quiz shows. I'm quite a quizzer. I'm quite a keen gamer and quizzer. So I thought I was looking for different quiz shows to apply to in the UK. And then an application popped up for the UK Genius, and I thought, well, it's a bit different to what I'd normally go for, but I'm happy to just test the water and see what it is. I read the quick synopsis of it. I'd never heard of the Genius before, so I was never aware of the Korean version. So it wasn't something I was familiar with, but I just thought I liked the idea of it, just reality, but reality TV for intelligent people. So it was right up my street. So I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go. I'll see if I can how far I get with it, and yeah, successfully got through the application process.
Yeah. Well, so what I appreciate a lot about you, Scott, is I think we read your press before the game, and I know for you that was a long time ago, but so often people have their plan of I'm going to lay low or I'm going to play this way, and then they get onto the actual set and play completely differently. I feel like for you, you were like, yeah, I'm going to kind of lead things and run this group and be very forceful, and then you went in episode 1, immediately followed through on that. Knowing how things worked out now, do you regret in that first match kind of taking up that leadership role and having it play out as it did?
No, I don't think I do. I think I think I was always going to play that way. Before going on the show, I'd spoken to a few close friends, just saying I was going to be on this type of show. Didn't give them any specific details, but just to get people's thoughts. And the thing that kept coming up that everyone always says is, don't go in too hard. Fly under the radar a little bit. Be held back, because the people who go in hard always go home early. And I thought, you know what, I could do that. It seems like the logical play to do, but I wanted to try and make it work. And if there's always the chance that you go in, try and keep a low profile, and you end up going home first anyway. And there's always that risk, and then you go home feeling disappointed that you never actually implemented your own gameplay. So I thought, if I'm gonna go home, I want to do it on my own terms, and I want to give myself the best opportunity. And as long as I play my game, and if I end up in a death match, I end up in a death match, and I just take my chances with it. So, in terms of how game 1 went, I think I don't really have any regrets with it. I think I wanted to sort of stamp my authority, make people a bit aware of my presence, same way Ben did in the first 2 episodes. And I don't see Ben changing his plan or pattern of attack. He's the same way, and I think it can work for some people, and it can backfire. I think if it had worked for me in episode 2, if I'd got through that, then I genuinely think I'd have had a strong chance of making it all the way to the final. But sadly not to be.
Yeah, I think it was a bit unfortunate, just like the nature of zombie game, where everyone who would be scared that you might pick them for the deathmatch was all immune. So we kind of throw you in willy-nilly and just hope someone would knock you out. I did have a question, because it felt like you had this really strong group around you in episode 1. A lot of people playing kind of against their self-interest, except for you and Charlotte. We go immediately into episode 2, and whereas India was working with you in episode 1, she's immediately with Ben in episode 2. I don't know how much you can say, but like, what happened in between those times, or what did we not see that led to that shift?
I don't think there was anything in particular. I think in episode 1, what they didn't show, a lot of the negotiations that we're talking about, when I first came in with the strategy, when I got everyone to get involved with the strategy, the 2 people in the group that kept consistently saying, I don't want this to be a permanent alliance going forward. I don't want to ice out the other 5, which was going to be my strategy. We form a group of 6, and we pick off one of the other group one at a time.
Yeah.
I think you guys mentioned in one of your recap videos that that's a thing that you can do, and there was no reason not to do it. But Amanfi and India were both quite insistent that they didn't want to form a permanent alliance for every single episode, which I'm open to if they feel that there's other dynamics they want to explore, and that's something that each person has to explore for themselves. So I think those 2 were always keen to sort of do their own thing in future episodes and just go with whatever way the wind is blowing. So that's why I sort of had a better, closer connection with Charlotte and Ken in particular, because I think they saw the value in forming an alliance and sticking with that alliance. So that, I think there was nothing key that really changed for, I don't think, India or in particular setup, or Pasha. I think the only thing that probably upset Pasha within the group was that she was the one that ended up going to the death match. So perhaps she felt a little bit thrown under the bus from that play in episode 1. So perhaps she was always had a bit of a vendetta against me for not protecting her a bit more. But
yeah. So let's talk about the zombie game, because so much happens in a weird way. Like, you don't play the biggest role in this game. It just kind of Ben locks the game down with his strategy that's kind of tough to overcome. So in retrospect, you hear Ben's plan, this bubble of 4. What do you think your counterplay should have been? Like, what's the ideal way to confront that?
Yeah, it's one thing I've kicked myself over for, obviously, since the past year since we filmed it. I think there's once that bubble play happens from Ben, there's only really a few options to deal with that. Option one, which is what I tried to do initially, was infiltrate the bubble, which was going to be trying to use Charlotte and get her to get into that bubble, or at least convince the bubble that they might have a zombie within them, and get Charlotte to maybe replace them. The one thing I didn't know, which everyone else seemed to know, was that Charlotte had told the entire game she was a zombie. So when she came into that room to speak to Bedalia and myself and Ken, I was under the impression that we were the only people that knew she was a zombie, and that we were trying to help her defeat the other group. The obvious play is, what I would call the double bubble. They've got their bubble. Yeah. Me, Ken, and Bedalia find the other human and form our second bubble. But I was reluctant to try and play that game because I wanted to protect Charlotte for what I could. If we double bubbled, Charlotte and Amanfi go straight into the death match. And I think there's a part of me that kind of wanted to preserve the alliance with Charlotte and see if we could find a way to help the zombies win. And I think, unfortunately, I spent too long not realizing that the bubble knew that Charlotte was a zombie. And I think that ultimately cost me. What I should have done in hindsight is gone straight to Alison and Amanfi from the off. As soon as I found out Charlotte was a zombie, go straight to Amanfi and Alison, touch both of them, take 2 antidotes. I've guaranteed a human touch, at least one.
That's smart.
And then I've got Bedalia and Ken to get the other 2 points, and I'm already on 3 points. And at that point, I'm safe. So that's what I should have done. And I think I waited too long to act on that. And by the time I did, I think Alison had been infected by Amanfi. And it's sort of game over from that point on. So I think round 1, I could have done a lot different. I think probably of Charlotte's own making. I think Charlotte knew what she was doing. I think she didn't want this other bubble forming. She needed as many zombies as possible at the end of the game so that she was protected. Safety in numbers, and she knew I was the biggest target in the group. So by keeping me held back a little bit, she guarantees that I'm a zombie at the end of the game. I'm probably the pick for the death match. I'm not going to pick her. So she played the right game. She fought herself, and I completely respect that. But I think I spent too long trying to protect her from that, and ultimately it sort of cost me with catching Alison before she turned.
So you kind of answered a bit of my next question. But when it comes to Charlotte and her being a zombie, you kind of talked extensively at the start of the episode about how important it is to have a zombie on your team, right? And to know where they are. Was there something you had cooked up, or was it just about knowing where the zombies were?
It was a bit of both. I think the main thing was to work out who the zombies were and where they were. If we knew that both zombies were outside of their bubble, it is information that we have that, whether we can do anything with that or not, probably unlikely, but at least we can then maybe look to form a second bubble, and we can rule out that as a strategy. I think with Charlotte, the main benefit I think we thought of having a zombie was that we could try and infiltrate a bubble and use her as an advantage. And obviously the downside is that we didn't realize she'd told everyone that she was already a zombie, so that plan was never going to work from the outset. So yeah, I think there wasn't really a strategy. It was very, quickly coming up on the cuff, trying to think what ways can we play this. And I think the starting strategy between Bedalia, myself, and Ken was, can we turn everyone in the game into a zombie? And to do that, we needed into that bubble. So I think that was the initial strategy, but it was never ever going to work once Ben had formed that alliance. So it was just a bit unfortunate the way it fell.
I think so, and it's also unfortunate in the sense of Benjamin knew the strategy from the previous time the game was played. So in terms of what you're saying, like the big mistake, I feel like a lot of your mistakes come down to not figuring out the exact solution immediately, which is a very difficult thing to do when you of course have not watched the zombie game being already played before.
And I think in that studio as well, you've got the clock on the wall just above you constantly ticking down, and you're kind of like, I've only got 5 minutes here to pivot from my original strategy. And it's a lot of pressure to try and then come up with a brand new strategy. But once the round finishes, we all get taken off for face-to-face interviews with the camera just to talk about how the round went. And we're all sort of sitting down for half an hour just to collect our thoughts. And it's in that half-hour window that you really have time to process the game, and you're like, how stupid was I not to go get Alison straight away? It's the obvious play was to get Alison and Amanfi. You know, one of them is a zombie, one's definitely a human. So the obvious play is to get both of them and just take some antidotes to protect yourself. But it seems obvious in retrospect, but obviously in the heat of the moment, it's just not. These things take a while to come to you.
Of course. So you talked to Bex a lot during the episode, and they showed us much more of like Benjamin's meltdown in regards to those conversations and the conversations themselves. So long time ago, but when you're talking to Bex, what are you trying to get done in these conversations?
So something I didn't really show much of was mine and Beck's relationship. We did have a few chats in episode 1, although we were on opposite teams. Bex was the one person from that minority group who was being sociable with the rest of the group. They showed her and Amanfi having that chat in Heist game, and I guess they're showing that because that ultimately led to Bex's decision in episode 2 to protect Amanfi in that decision-making room. But Bex and I also had those chats in episode 1. And we made an alliance, and we both said that we'll protect each other in a similar way to what Amanfi did. And so episode 2 comes around, and I think of that group, although I'd worked with India and Pasha in episode 1, we didn't really form a strong particular bond. There was just a mutual agreement of this is the best strategy in episode 1. But Bex and I had formed that sort of friendship. And so I think episode 2, Bex was my link into that bubble group to try and pull her through it. And I think the main strategy was convince her that I'm a better ally for her long term than what Ben is. And just say, I was letting Ben be controlling, be manipulative, and be the loud voice who's sort of not trusting Bex. And I guess the hope was that Bex would sort of see through Ben's manipulation and say, you know what, Ben doesn't trust me. Scott's perhaps a better ally here. If I go with Scott, Bex wins the game. Bex gets to decide which of the remaining humans goes into the deathmatch, and in that case, I'd hope she would then pick Ben based on his antics from that show. So that was the main tactic. There was a few more conversations which they don't quite show in the edit that we had in Zombie Match throughout round 2 and round 3, because I was quite insistent because it's the only strategy I had. From round 2 onwards, the only play I had was to get into that bubble and break the bubble from within, and Bex was the only candidate to do that. So
sure. So just basically what I'm hearing is Benjamin was right to be freaking out.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, I don't think Bex was ever going to turn. I think she's quite, from what I understood from the first 2 games, she was very honourable. She has a high integrity level with it, so for her, especially early in the game, she doesn't want to make enemies with people and make people think that she's not trustworthy, because it wouldn't just be Ben she'd be screwing over, it would have been Pasha and India, and it just gives the wrong signal to the whole group that Bex can't be trusted. So it was a long shot that she was ever going to actually deviate, but I think the more Ben pushed and tried to control Bex, I felt optimistic that actually he's doing himself more damage by doing this. So I'm just going to stand back and let him shout at Bex and say it's the highest order of betrayal or whatever he said.
Betrayal of the highest order.
Yeah,
okay,
that's the one, yeah.
I have 2 more questions. I want to talk about Amanfi for a second, because Amanfi, you can say Benjamin's your team's undoing, but Amanfi really kind of ended the game the second he turned Allison and then gets to Ken and Bedalia. So what's weird to me is after all of that, he's just kind of hanging out in the room with you all, and it kind of seems like he's a part of your team, and you obviously don't pick him for the death match. So on your team and just you personally, how were you feeling about Amanfi at the end of that game?
So me personally, I love Amanfi. I thought I'm all about the gameplay. So for me, if you're playing the game and you're getting involved in the game, you're playing it right. And Amanfi's a zombie. He has to play the game as a zombie. He can't do what Charlotte did. If he did what Charlotte did, the game's over.
Yeah.
If both of them can both come out as zombies, we form that second bubble, both go into the deathmatch. Charlotte's plan of being open only works if Amanfi's active chaos agent. And so I think for me, Amanfi's playing the game right, and I didn't want to punish him for doing that. Also, he's upsetting a lot of people. So had I come through the deathmatch with Allison, Amanfi's got a target on his back for for episode 3, and I'm off the hook all of a sudden from episode 1. No one's touching me for a couple of episodes in my mind. If I get through that death match with Alison, I've served my time, I've done my punishment, I've done my death match, I've come through it. Amanfi's the one who's got a lot of heat on him at that time. So by keeping him in the game, there was deflected heat. By contrast, Alison wasn't doing anything in either of the first 2 episodes. She didn't really have any active role in the first 2. She had no strategy. And to be honest, in Zombie Game, I'm not sure that Alison knew whether she wanted to be a human or be a zombie, or she wanted to convince us that she was either or. You look at how Ben formed that bubble in the first place. He gave Alison the option, convince me you're a human and you'll get in this bubble ahead of Bex. And she just didn't do it. She stood still and she didn't say anything. And I thought, I don't get what her angle was on this. There's no benefit to being a human but pretending to be a zombie. And in the end, I just thought, you know what? I don't think she knows what she's doing. I don't think she has a clear understanding of a strategy of the game. She hasn't played well, and I think I have to take my shot on the one person who I haven't had the connection with and who I don't see as playing the game properly. In the end, that's sort of why I settled on Alison over Amanfi.
I think it was a reasonable choice. She just so happened to be amazing at that specific death match. I mean, she was pretty incredible.
It's one of the things. I absolutely love Alison in that death match. She played it sensationally. Just the stare and everything about her whole demeanor was just perfect. I think it's complete contrast in the figures because I'm a very emotional person. Like I will show my emotion and anger and frustration and confusion, whereas I think you use the word stoic to describe her in your one of your recap videos, and it's absolutely right. She's just a stoic person. She doesn't let anything affect her.
So I also said this on the recap episode. I'm curious your thoughts on it. The only kind of criticism I had of you in the death match was at several times you were like revealing tiles as you know one of your options. What's the logic behind it? Because I was confused.
Yeah, I think I only did it once, and I think when I did it, the scores were tied at I think it was 6-3 or 6-6. It was a close game. My logic initially was, and my tactic going into it was, try and memorize all of the white knots, and that's just 9 pieces to memorize, and do it in a similar way that Alison was doing it, with memorizing where your doubles were and just shifting your single one to them. So you can do it in 3 moves really. What I didn't do was memorize Alison's crosses that were adjacent to it, so I didn't target them first, whereas I think she did, which then threw me off my game plan. I saw the downside to just doing what I think you guys discussed in the recap video of doing what I ended up doing, which is just swapping 2 pieces and hitting 3 and taking a loss on a 1-point loss. And I knew I had 2 free hits at that, but I just didn't want to use them that early in the game. So I thought, if it's still close score, I can use a reveal and just see if I find one of my pieces. Now, obviously, the downside, I reveal one of Alison's pieces, it's instantly advantage to Alison. But in my head at that point in the game, I think Alison, to me, still seemed convinced that she memorized the board. Like she'd shown no impact or no effect that she hadn't memorized where her pieces were. So by revealing one of her pieces, I don't feel like I'm giving her that much of an advantage, because she probably, in my head, already knows where it is. So I can only gain an advantage by finding one of my pieces. So I think the reward outweighed the risk in my head. Obviously, it backfired, and I think it instantly did help Alison move and complete a set on that first one.
Yeah.
And by that point, she moved up to 9 points. And then once that's the score, 9-6, I've got
it's hard.
2 free shots. I have to go all out and just take punts at trying to complete a set, which I don't think it would have played out any differently if I hadn't used that one reveal. Maybe it would have. Maybe Alison didn't know where her crosses were. But yeah, it's I think I was trying to play a bit conservatively and not go all out attack too early on, but didn't quite work out.
Just a quick mechanics question, because I feel like sometimes especially this rendition of the Genius game, they leave some rolls out if they don't become irrelevant. Did they have a caveat for like a stalemate if you all just kept like revealing the same tile over and over again, waiting for the other person to make a move?
They didn't say that. It did cross my mind at one point when I was sort of 9-6 down, and then I could see Alison forming that trio in the top corner. it crossed my mind, do I just keep moving one of her pieces back out and she moves it back in, and we just keep doing that same thing? And I thought I could do this, but they're just someone will come out and tell me I have to do something different.
Okay.
They didn't give us any direct instruction, but it was more, I didn't see a benefit in it. It was just going to be a stalemate. And Alison already has the advantage, so I just thought I'd rather just play the game, and if Alison builds her set, she builds her set. But yeah.
So my final question, Scott, because I think, again, in the Genius game, it's very beneficial to be a big threat. People are scared to take you into the deathmatch. In these specific circumstances, it was not ideal for you. But I do think you were rightfully thought of as a front runner. I think Benjamin's in that boat as well. When you leave the set, you're eliminated. Try to transport back into that head state. Who do you think are like the strongest players remaining in the game, and who did you think were your biggest threats to ultimately winning the whole thing?
So going into the deathmatch, I'll go from that set of mind. So obviously, let's rule Alison out, because in my head, I'm knocking Alison out in the deathmatch.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Alison goes through and instantly becomes on everyone's radar. But when I was thinking before the deathmatch of who's the big players here that I need to think of tomorrow to try and get rid of, Benjamin's obviously number one. He's manipulated that situation. Him and India. Now, I think India doesn't get enough credit for what she did in those first 2 episodes. And I think India is responsible for eliminating both the first 2 contestants. If you think about it, in episode 1 heist game, when I create the strategy, but I leave the name open to see who wants to propose someone to get eliminated, and it's India who says Paul. And in episode 2, in their room, it's India who puts my name forward first. Obviously, Ben was thinking it, but Ben didn't want to say it as well. So, so India put both names forward for the first 2 eliminations, and I think she was quite cunning with how she played the first 2 episodes. She befriended Charlotte. She got the extra garnet. She had negotiating power against Paul. She formed a relationship with Ben, jumped sides, effectively jumping from one alliance to the other to see basically going which way the wind was blowing. So India, Ben, and the other group, I think, were 2 of the strongest that I wanted to get rid of instantly. Those were the first 2 I was going to try and get rid of on the next episode. And then obviously Ken and Charlotte were my 2 alliances that I had, these were the friends I was keeping close for a while. And, I saw value in both Ken and Charlotte as allies, but at some point they were going to have to go. So I'd say those are my 4 top picks for people who I could see being strong contenders to go all the way. I think the other contestants were mostly flying under the radar. I think, Amanfe, as much as I love him, he was playing a short game. He seemed like he was just living from one day to the next and rubbing up a lot of people the wrong way. He didn't really have many alliances outside of Bex. So I just thought, his days are probably numbered at that point. So I didn't see him much as a threat, which is why I was willing to keep him in the game when choosing my deathmatch candidate. Alison didn't really do much in the first 2 episodes. And Bex was playing the social angle, but I wasn't convinced she had much of a strategy. She was just, again, going with which way the wind blew and making friends and hoping that served her well. So, I think that was where I was at with most of the cast. But I was hoping I would be the biggest threat.
Well, look, I think ultimately when they were deciding between sending you or Alison in, it was like, do we send in the biggest threat or the smallest threat? And the truth is, everyone's a threat, when it comes to the right deathmatch. So I just want to say thank you so much, Scott. Again, I think, look, if you're a Benjamin hater, which I certainly am not, it's tough not having a Scott there to head the other side.
Absolutely.
But it's so fun to watch you play. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you had an awesome experience.
Yeah, thank you, Cory. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Scott. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.